Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. A police radio recording is providing more details on the initial response at the Walsh family home where 4 people were found dead in Harrow. Plus an emotional end of a school year for students and teachers in Kingsville as they say goodbye to 3 local schools for a final time. And can you believe it? The long weekend is here. We break down what Mother Nature has in store for us this Canada Day weekend. Funeral services have been scheduled for 3 of the 4 members of the Harrow family who were found dead in their home on June 20th. But OPP still haven't clarified how Carly Walsh and her 2 children, Madison and Hunter, died that day, nor have they explained the death of Stephen Walsh, who has been omitted from those funeral arrangements. But a police scanner recording is providing more details about their response. And this is a warning. This story does have reference to suicide. Dawson Chen joins us live. Dawson, what do we know about what happened at the Walsh family home?
Meg, OPP so far have only disclosed they attended the property at 1200 County Road 13 to check on the well-being of an individual. But CBC Windsor has obtained audio of police scanner communications in the county on June 20th. This excerpt contains words exchanged at 1:25 p.m. on that day between an Essex County OPP officer and his dispatcher after police attended the Walsh residence.
Yeah, 10-4, can we get an NCO dispatch to this address, please? Appears to be a male party, possible suicide with a shotgun, 45 for sure, 100%. Just need to clear this residence, look for the female party.
And then 6 minutes later at 1:31 p.m., we hear this.
Yeah, 10-4, we get 4 deceased parties.
It should be noted that initial communications from police officers on scenes are early reports. Assessments of the situation can change as more investigation occurs. As of Friday afternoon, OPP are still holding back on any description of this incident other than an investigation of 4 deaths. But the community is desperate for answers. CBC Windsor spoke with an Ontario-based women's rights advocate who says we need to know whether this incident is an example of intimate partner violence.
I think police have a difficult job when it comes to investigating cases like this, and my heart does go out to the officer that arrived on the scene because I'm sure that it was a harrowing thing to experience. But the police have an incredible responsibility to communicate the reality of what we're experiencing. And when we frame these cases as one-off, a private affair, we're not connecting the dots between what happened in this community, this family, and the fact that the rates of femicide in Canada are increasing every year.
Dawson, as you had mentioned, the community is hurting. They are looking for answers. When can we expect more clarity from police?
Meg, there's no telling. OPP West Region has responded to our request by saying additional comment or confirmations can't be provided while the investigation continues. And as of right now, we don't know when police will release further information.
Well, thanks so much for that, Dawson. That's the CBC's Dawson Chen. If you or someone you know is struggling, here's where you can get help. Canada's Suicide Crisis Helpline. Call or text 988. Kids Help Phone 1-800-668-6868. Canadian Association for Suicide Prevention. Find a 24-hour crisis center. This guide from the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health outlines how to talk about suicide with someone you're worried about. Well, an 8-year-old boy suffered serious injuries when he was hit by a minivan while riding his bike. OPP say it happened around 9 o'clock yesterday morning on Rosewood Drive in Lakeshore. That's in the area near the Atlas Tube Centre. Police say no charges have been laid against the driver. And in St. Thomas, police have arrested and charged a Chatham-Kent man. They say he allegedly fled the scene of a car crash that killed a woman this past weekend. 35-year-old John Charles Michael McClellan of Thamesville is accused of failing to stop at the scene of an accident causing death. He's also charged with 2 counts of operating a motor vehicle while prohibited, according to the police chief. Police identified the victim as 34-year-old Carissa George, but would not say where she was from. The alleged hit and run happened at 1:20 a.m. last Sunday. A 100-year-old school in Kingsville shut its doors for the last time today, as well as 2 others. They're being replaced by Erie Migration District School, a K-12. As Dale Molnar reports, the last few days have been marked with celebration and, of course, some tears.
The sign in front of Kingsville District High School disappeared this week. It's not clear what happened to it. For one former student and a mother of 2 daughters going to high school, it's symbolic of the significance of the day.
I remember when they were trying to close the school back in 1990, and all the students and the community that really rallied behind the school to save the school essentially for a number of following years. So I have good memories of that, and also I was involved in student council, so I was quite involved with planning events and a lot of the school and community activities.
The school was known for its auto shop. In 2019, the students built this coffin car inspired by the Munsters TV show, and it was entered in the Detroit Autorama.
When my husband died, we had all of the donations, funeral donations, toward the sound system, which hadn't been paid for at Migration Hall. And that's a plaque to show that.
Migration Hall is part of the Kingsville High School property, so this is its last day too. It was built in 1990, partly through donations from townspeople and partly through the school board. And there will be a lot of people with fond memories of events and concerts here.
Red Green, Stompin' Tom Connors played his last show here. Rita McNeil was here. Especially the older people who really remember this place and watched it be built are going to be sad to see it just left.
This was also the last day for Kingsville Public School, a school that's been here for many, many decades. An emotional day, especially for one teacher in particular. French immersion teacher Janet Molson retired today. She spent her entire 29 years teaching at this school, which is retiring along with her.
Multi-mixed feelings, bittersweet, but great memories, great colleagues, past and present, and they're on a new adventure, and I'm starting on one as well.
Wednesday was the last day of classes, so the staff and children held a special celebration, complete with the usual water fight they have at the end of every school year.
But the fact of the matter is that the school has been open since 1862, so there's a lot of emotions tied to this school.
A few days ago, students at Kingsville District High School got together to spell out the letters of the school. Students from that school, as well as Kingsville Public School and Jack Minor Public School, will begin attending classes at the new school in the fall. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Kingsville.
Demolition of the former Sears building is set to begin in July. That's according to the CEO of the company that owns Devonshire Mall. A statement from the real estate investment trust that owns the mall says work has started on the inside of the building, which needs to happen before demolition starts. The plans are to rebuild on the site and add a new entrance and facade to enhance curb appeal. The location closed in 2018 when Sears pulled out of Canada. Since then, it has been a Spirit Halloween and vaccination clinic during the COVID-19 pandemic. The trust says they considered all options, including reuse of the space. Demolition of the old building could begin in 2 or 3 weeks. The town of LaSalle has chosen its newest police chief. Michael Pierce will take over the town's police service in late July. He has previously worked for Chatham-Kent Police and York Regional Police in areas ranging from traffic and drugs to media relations and training. Pierce will replace Duncan Davies, who is retiring. There's a new person in charge of the Aamjiwnaang First Nation. Janelle Namabin has been a band counselor with the First Nation. Now she is the acting chair of Aamjiwnaang. In April, some people on the reserve reported becoming sick because of benzene emissions from a nearby plastics plant. The closure of the facility highlighted long-standing environmental concerns for a community that sits in the midst of the Sarnia-Lambton Chemical Valley. She says her priorities are to continue the advocacy from their environment department and to continue work on their election law and membership code. Chris, the moment we've all been waiting for, that long weekend forecast. And I'm a little concerned because we already got an email from the downtown farmers market saying they're canceling tomorrow due to some bad weather. So give it to us straight.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those circumstances. We get into a long weekend. It wouldn't be nice if we just had high pressure in place, Mag, the entire long weekend. Unfortunately, that is not the case. A little bit warmer today compared to yesterday. Daytime highs in the Windsor area only peaked in the low 20s. Normal daytime high for this time of year is close to 27, peaking close to 25 today, so a little bit less cool, if you will. In terms of the temperatures we're seeing out there on the board, once again, a little bit higher compared to yesterday. We had daytime highs basically in the high teens to the low 20s. Temperatures are starting to climb, and that's going to continue to be the case into the day tomorrow. So once again, the normal daytime high close to 27, currently 23 in Windsor, 22 in Sarnia, 20 in Goderich, and 21 through London. And the humidity not necessarily a huge factor, but it's still enough to make it feel close to 30. That will start to increase as well. Also, the increase in rainy weather. We're just starting to notice the first wave of showers pushing in. It's kind of over-enhanced. It's not a steady, moderate to heavy rainfall, but it's still wet weather nonetheless. That first wave will migrate off towards the east, moving towards the Golden Horseshoe. More waves of showers, embedded thunderstorms still a possibility as well. They would be non-severe in nature, but they could still produce some heavier downpours locally, along with some gusty winds in excess of 60 kilometers an hour. Once again, if the thunderstorms do develop, and I think they will start to develop. But the good news is it's not a complete washout for the day tomorrow. Most of the rainfall for the Windsor area will be during the morning, early afternoon. After that, it starts to migrate up towards London, Kitchener, Waterloo. Another area of hit or miss showers and a few embedded thunderstorms will develop for the evening. It looks like it will hold well north of Chatham and Windsor and Leamington. It looks like it could impact the London and Kitchener area once again. As we head into Sunday, a little bit of cloud from time to time, but it looks dry. But I'll tell you, it will be noticeably cooler thanks to the change in the wind direction. We have southerly winds developing tonight, basically holding overnight lows in the low 20s. Once again, the risk of showers and thunderstorms ongoing through the morning and afternoon. But once we get into the daytime hours, highs near 29. Contrast that down to 22 on Sunday. We'll get into a partial clear out by Monday for July 1st. It looks like a gorgeous day to get out and enjoy. Temperatures will trend a little bit below normal at 23, but lots of sun, Mag. Lots of sunshine again on Tuesday as temperatures begin to creep up again. And then we're looking at highs possibly at 31 for next Wednesday with a slight risk of a few showers.
We love to hear lots of sunshine. Thanks so much for that, Chris.
You got it.
For the first time in years, the Canada Day Parade will return to downtown Windsor. The parade will kick off on Monday at 11 a.m., starting at the corner of Olette and Wyandotte. There will be entertainment, activities, and of course, those Canada Day cupcakes. Here's what else you can expect.
The parade is locked and loaded. It looks great. Lots of new entries, lots of entries that we've had with us before. We have giant inflatables from our friends at Dynamic Displays. Lots of community groups that are participating, new community groups that are participating. Music, both from marching bands, orchestras, pipe bands, and then we have a lot of our entries that are part of the parade that also bring music. We are one of the sites that the Government of Canada sponsors through Heritage Canada and their Celebrate Canada fund. So this project is sponsored mainly by the Government of Canada, along with the DWBIA and some smaller sponsors. We're very happy to have this opportunity to come back downtown. We're happy to bring this to the downtown as part of the Downtown Strong initiative and let people see what truly can happen down there. And as always, we are so thankful to the number of entries that we have, the groups that come out and help to make this all happen, and to the many, many, many volunteers on the parade route who without them, this wouldn't be taking place.
Coming up, we get out of the studio for our week's end segment. Stay tuned to find out where. So Josiah, you've taken us out of the studio for this week's Week's End segment, and we're on a bit of a field trip. Why are we at the Capitol Theatre?
Well, Meg, right here at the Capitol Theatre tonight is where a big event is happening. It's a huge Windsor variety show called Femmes and Gems, and I'm going to walk you over to the poster and tell you a little bit more about it. So as I mentioned, Meg, Femmes and Gems is a Windsor-themed variety show, and it's really special because it's actually capping off a week-long conference called Femme Meeting that's been happening here in the city. And women from all around the world in the arts fields and the scientific community have been coming together to collaborate and learn from one another and be hosted here in the city of Windsor.
So why are they gathering here in Windsor?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Femme Meeting actually takes place all around the world. This year, Windsor was chosen as the host city, and that's a big thanks in part to Incubator Art Lab, who are just across the street here from us. And this is a really cool hybrid laboratory that's run by the University of Windsor. They combine art, science, ecology, and it's run by Professor Jennifer Willett. And so they decided, you know, let's host all these women, let's get them involved at Femme Meeting and show them what Windsor has to offer. And I actually spoke to Professor Willett alongside her assistant, Dominica Mediati, who actually organized this year's Femme Meeting. And I'll show you a little bit of our conversation earlier this week.
And it's a different kind of conference when you fill a room only with women. So we call it a crying conference. Sometimes there's crying, there's a lot of hugging. There's a lot of amazing advancements in technology and learning strategies, a lot of social, as well as a lot of academic talks.
So Cole is alumni of the lab, who has been working towards his drag performance locally here in Windsor. And we have also hosted him back to do some performance artwork here in the lab. So we thought, what better way to end Femme Meeting with a variety show than do a drag performance
with Epoxy.
With Epoxy, yes. Shout out to Epoxy, the drag queen. We'll also have Lua and Mercury Retrograde alongside some academics and performers.
So Meg, there you have it, a really exciting week that we've had here in Windsor, and what better way to cap it off than this variety show, Femmes and Gems.
Okay, so anybody who wants to come out and see Femmes and Gems, what should they know?
Yeah, well, you gotta be right here at the Capitol Theatre. Doors are at 7, and registration is required even though it's free. So you'll want to go to the Incubator Art Lab website to register for those tickets. If you're 16 and up, anyone can show up. And Meg, actually, we had a really exciting conversation on Afternoon Drive about this earlier this week, including Epoxy, the drag queen, who's going to be the headliner tonight. So if you want to check that out, you can go on your CBC Listen app and look up Afternoon Drive.
Thanks so much for that. Have a great long weekend.
Yes, you too, Meg.
Well, we have a few more stories before we wrap up for that long weekend. Stay tuned. Some First Nations groups in Yukon are worried about chemical contamination of their water supply after a rock slide earlier this week at the territory's largest gold mine. The Eagle mine uses cyanide to extract gold from raw ore, and there are concerns the toxic solution may have leaked into the groundwater. Officials say they're analyzing water around the mine now, but are hopeful the cyanide was contained.
As soon as we attended the scene, the company had already taken mitigation steps to contain the water so that it doesn't go anywhere else. It's pumped into the various ponds that they have, so then they can figure out what the next step is to deal with the water. But from our perspective, when we arrived, there was no visible water that was not contained.
Torrential downpours in India's capital have triggered severe flooding and widespread chaos. Massive traffic jams delayed morning commuters across much of New Delhi. The city received more than an entire month's worth of rain in just 24 hours. One person was killed after heavy rains and wind brought down a roof at the main airport. It's a June of extremes for the city of 20 million people after the month began with scorching heat waves. Experts say there needs to be a plan to store floodwaters to counter days of shortages and drought. Today marks the start of 3 days of remembrance for Newfoundland's unknown soldier in St. John's. Brought home from northern France more than a century after he left to fight in the First World War, his remains will lie in state before being entombed at the province's National War Cemetery. Peter Cowan reports.
Hundreds lined up to honor a soldier they never knew, more than 100 years after he left Newfoundland for war. Even in the pouring rain, they waited for their moment to say thanks.
There's no mud, there's no rats, there's no dysentery, and there's no bullets flying at me. I don't think I could say the same for that man lying in there.
I can't describe the emotions.
For years, Frank Sullivan pushed for the National War Memorial in St. John's to have its own tomb of the unknown soldier. During the First and Second World War, Newfoundland wasn't part of Canada. The unknown soldier at the War Memorial in Ottawa came from Vimy Ridge. Newfoundlanders didn't fight there.
He doesn't represent the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. So this is why I started this.
The remains of this soldier were unearthed from a field in France earlier this year where he fought and died. A soldier title like this was found in his grave, along with his boots and pieces of uniform.
It was overwhelming with emotion.
The province's premier, visibly emotional at times, had his own private moment.
We hope he would be proud. We hope he would know that the people of Newfoundland and Labrador showed up for him.
For those who showed up, it's not just history, it's often personal. 1/3 of young men from here fought in the First World War.
I'm here representing my grandfather.
Dave Maloney's grandfather was one of the lucky ones. He came home.
I mean, they took the call, they went, and some of them never came back.
The unknown soldier will lie in state until Monday, Memorial Day in this province, when the remains will be entombed at the War Memorial. People will gather to say thank you and farewell to a fallen son of Newfoundland on behalf of all of those who never came home. Peter Cowan, CBC News, St. John's.
Governor General Mary Simon conducted the annual inspection of the ceremonial guard today in Ottawa. The Governor General is also Commander-in-Chief of the Canadian Armed Forces. The event included a performance by a military band and parade. Then every weekend from June 29th to August 5th, the ceremonial guard will perform the relief of the sentries on the grounds of Rideau Hall twice daily. Prince Anne has left hospital and returned home after a recent accident that left her with a concussion. The cause of Anne's injuries remains unclear. Doctors said the injuries were consistent with an impact from a horse's head or legs. The 73-year-old sister of King Charles had been hospitalized as a precautionary measure, but she's expected to make a full recovery. Anne was injured Sunday while at her estate in southwestern England. A deadly fungus is threatening many amphibian species around the world, even driving some to extinction. Now an Australian research team has come up with a simple solution to fight back. It looks like a homemade sauna made of tarp and bricks, and the frogs seem to be helping themselves to it. CBC's Anand Ram takes a closer look.
They're small but tough predators. Green and golden bell frogs, but the species is endangered, struggling against a tiny threat. A fungus called chytrid is ravaging some amphibian populations around the world, causing 90 species to go extinct and pushing 500 others into decline.
I think it's been one of the most devastating pathogens that Western science has recorded. It interferes with their ability to move water and gases across their skin. That's how they breathe.
But the one thing chytrid doesn't like, hot temperatures. So a team in Australia tested some artificial hotspots made of bricks and plastic tarp, the kinds you'd find at a hardware store.
And not only did it make it warmer, it made it humid. So it was like inside like a proper sauna.
And the frogs loved it, wedging themselves into the warm bricks as often as they pleased.
What we found is that if frogs had access to these shelters, their body temperatures were higher. And over time, they had lower infections.
This is a very simple but very elegant.
For those who study amphibian disease, it's a welcome tool in the fight against chytrid.
We need bold measures at this point, right? If that single measure is not going to be effective across all the species, right? So I think we just have to try different things at this point.
The fungus is far from the only threat. Humans are still destroying amphibian habitats, both on land and water, and that can hurt our own health.
We know in other places where frogs have declined, we see increases in human diseases that are vectored by insects, so like malaria rates can increase.
Driving home the need for affordable conservation solutions like this to help these animals help themselves. Anand Ram, CBC News, Toronto.
That's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also download the CBC News app for stories that matter most to you. And don't forget to watch The National tonight at 9 on CBC News Network, 10 p.m. on the CBC News app, CBC TV, and streaming on CBC Gem and CBC Explore. Thanks so much for tuning in. Enjoy your long weekend. We're looking forward to seeing you back here next week.